Hello and welcome to the Unknown Comics Podcast, episode 14. I'm Brandon. That's Tanner. Tonight we have a special guest with us, Dusty. Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely,
this
it's good
evening.
to be here.
Chris and Darren, of course, are not here tonight because they are living the grand life in the big island of Hawaii, getting ready for the David Nakayama signing this weekend. So for those that are joining live, thank you. We had a little bit of an audio issue, but now that's all fixed. If you are watching this not live on YouTube or listening to it on any of the audio podcasts, every Thursday evening at 7, we go live with this podcast. So if you want to be a part of the conversation, definitely log into Twitch TV/Unknown Comic Books, and that's where you can watch us live. Lots of great things to cover. Dusty, real quick, before we get started, why don't you tell everybody kind of your backgrounds with comics and just geekdom in general?
When I was probably, let me think, about 10 years old. My mom's youngest sister had a baby up at Northwest Texas Hospital, and back then children could not go above the first floor. And so my dad told me, he took me over where the waiting deal was, and he said, I'm going to buy you a Coke and a funny book. What do you want? And I said, I want that Batman right there. It was Batman 237.
Okay.
The Rutland, Vermont Halloween issue with the Reaper on the cover.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember that
So
one.
what year circa is this?
72.
72. I was not alive. Sorry.
Okay. Well, I was 10 at that. So that was my introduction to funny books.
Yeah,
and
I was -8 years old at
I
that point. So.
understand. And so the great Neil Adams did that Batman. It was Batman. It was when Denny O'Neil and
So
Neil
this would have
Adams
been
was
blue
doing it.
costume Batman.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And it had Bernie Wrightson in it. It had a lot of people in it, and I was hooked after that.
Yeah.
Hooked.
Awesome.
And and then soon after, I picked up on a spinner rack at a Toot and Totem. I picked up Green Lantern '82 with the Harpies.
Okay.
It was during the Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams.
Okay.
The little run that they did that won all the awards.
So this is still Hal Jordan, not John Stewart?
Hal Jordan. This
Hal
was
Jordan.
number 82. The original 82 was a 15-cent book.
Got
And so that was my introduction to him. That and the Batman TV series with Adam West.
Of course. Yeah.
And so I've been a fan ever since.
I remember the Family Channel on TV in the evenings would re-air the Batman 66 reruns. And I, at the time, so my brother was 11 years older than I was, and so he was at AC, and so he was college, so he wasn't really home a lot. I had a black and white TV in my room, just an old hand-me-down black and white TV. He had the color TV. And of course, if you're going to watch Batman,
Absolutely.
and I just remember the coolest thing in my mind was I'd be laying on his waterbed because he also had a waterbed.
That was very cool back then. Yeah.
Is laying on the bed, and every time like the POWs and BAMs, back when they went to the full screen color blast, it wasn't the overlay.
Right.
Like the whole room would change that color, and I just thought that was the coolest thing on earth.
Absolutely.
And of course, then the Batman movie came out and everything. That was that would have been the late '80s, early '90s when that.
So I guess there's a Roku app where you can free stream all the Batman 66. So my parents got my son hooked on it.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Oh yeah.
He's 4, and he loves Adam West Batman, and so I tried to get him to watch animated series. No interest.
Not interested. Have you
not campy enough, I guess.
Have you let him watch the old Superman series where George Reeves was Superman?
Oh, the black and white.
I have.
Then they colorized it.
Some colorized, yeah.
I haven't found anywhere to watch it outside of just going and buying it.
I've got Dish, and so on. It's either Saturday or Sunday mornings they show on the Heroic channel.
Okay.
I don't know anything about it. It's just
I've never
just
even
popped
heard of that.
up.
It's not on YouTube TV.
No, and then they'll show 2 Batman episodes, 2 Superman episodes back to back. Yeah.
We do watch Superman animated series, and we watch all the DC movies, the animated movies that are kid friendly together. And then I started my daughter on the old Wonder Woman.
Nice.
Oh, the Linda Carter.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was my brother's.
Nice.
Yeah.
Have you watched the old Flash that used to be on primetime TV?
I have that on DVD. We watch that every now and then too.
Nice. What about the Green Hornet? that came out with
No.
Bruce Lee.
No.
Bruce Lee was Kato.
Yeah, no, we haven't watched that.
No, okay. Just asking.
Yeah, no, the original Superman TV show, that's where the throw the gun at him kind of meme came
yeah.
from,
Yeah.
because that was
yeah.
bam, bam, bam. Oh, that didn't work. Throw the
Yeah.
gun at him. Yeah, that's
Yeah. Thrilling TV. I'll say.
exactly. So we'll go ahead and kind of get off on kind of the news tangent. One of the big headlines just dropped today. Marvel Comics dumping Diamond Comics distribution. So of course, this is kind of the second big blow to Diamond that's come within the past year. Of course, DC doing the same earlier this year. And
Honestly,
moving.
we knew it was coming eventually.
Yeah. So I mean, for quite a few years, and it's hard to speak about this with Darren not being here, because he's definitely more in the works of how that works and how that affects the comic owner. But Diamond's had pretty much a monopoly on North American distribution for quite a few years, and now for the first time, the two major comic publishers in North America are not. And not even diversifying to other distributors.
Right.
They are completely moving. Diamonds.
That is one thing I wish they would have done, is just diversified, because that would have solved the ordering issues, given some competition to the market. They're just moving it from one monopoly to another. We're still going to have to order from one company.
They're creating two instead of just dealing with one guy.
Right.
Yeah.
And is DC even going to keep publishing books? You hear enough of that, and you think, well, where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah, that what Time Warner decides to do with the actual publishing rights, whether they move it to a different publisher. I mean,
I know they've
time
cut
will
their
tell.
titles down to basically Justice League, the Trinity, and then I think Flash is going to keep his book, and Joker's going to get a book. Harley Quinn's getting a book.
Less than 10 is what I've been here. Is that right?
That's what I've heard.
It sounds like it. Yeah. It's sad. I mean, you kind of understand it, because DC sales have just been not great over the past few years, and especially with the pandemic and everything. It might be smart for DC to kind of outsource the IPs, but
I will say that I attribute DC to kind of saving comics during the pandemic, because they were the first ones. It wasn't the publishers that were stopping comics from going out. It was Diamond.
Yeah.
Diamond said, we're not working. Well, DC said, okay, well, we're going to distribute for somebody else. So they are the reason we still got comics through all of that.
like I said, I mean, and now, if DC were to do that, will it be Marvel? Nope. I guarantee you probably not. And I doubt Marvel would even want to add that to their plate. It's going to be, like an IDW or somebody like that is going to actually start publishing that. Which, I mean, we've already seen Marvel outsourcing some of their books to IDW and stuff like that. Some of it for their young readers, and other spinoffs and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know.
The one thing I hope it doesn't adversely affect is I read a lot of indie publisher titles. So I hope that if Diamond caves, it doesn't kill all these smaller publishers.
Right.
I hope they're able to find another distributor.
Yeah, but I mean, that's not to say that these indie titles can't start distributing from, Penguin Random House, or who is DC publishing through? I can't even remember right now.
Is it this?
It's I think
Is it? I read something the other day. Is it Luna?
I don't know. Chris would be able to answer that question.
It's
He
something.
does all the ordering.
Okay, yeah, Chris would know.
The internet knows too. Let's see if I can figure it out real quick. We have this gigantic encyclopedia at our fingers.
But DC's books to me, and I read a lot of. I used to read a lot of DC titles, and slowly I've whittled it down to where if it doesn't have a bat on it, I don't read it from DC, and I'm even questioning what I read now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were correct. It is Lunar.
Okay.
And UCS. They're kind of one. That is their direct market distribution. Now, DC is using Penguin Random House for trade paperbacks and graphic novels.
So could
They've
that
done that
be
for a
something,
long time, though, I think.
Now, is that who Marvel is going to?
So Marvel is going to Penguin Random House for from what I've told, everything.
Basically everything except for toys and statues and not
Okay.
reading material.
Right. Okay.
So,
So I wonder if there's something to be read into that. If they're
don't-
going to one that DC uses.
So what I found interesting, and if you kind of look at the kind of the landscape of the mega media companies, right? So Marvel is of course under the Disney umbrella, DC's under the Time Warner umbrella. Penguin Random House is technically under Viacom, CBS. So it's just like
Neutral territory.
or something.
Truce.
Yeah, exactly. That when is it going to be that somebody like Walt Disney? They've got to have what I don't fathom is they don't have their own publishing house, right? That Marvel didn't move to something that was internal to Disney. So
They'll buy one eventually.
right, or could Disney be in talks of picking up this publisher that they just moved everything to, right? From Viacom or whatever. It's going to be curious to see what happens, what it changes in the landscape, how it affects ordering, because a lot of the systems in place that FOC and stuff like that we have that's the diamond process, right? So we'll have to see just kind of how this kind of lands.
What do we know? Why did they drop? Do we know why?
I haven't honestly read into it a whole lot as to why. I think a lot of it is probably distribution issues that Diamond has had getting books to people. Honestly, I don't know. It's still pretty fresh news when we as at the time, so we didn't have a whole lot of lead time to kind of get into it and look, but I'm sure we'll know more as the information leaks. I'm sure Marvel's probably not going to come straight out and say why.
Yeah.
There's just going to be a lot of this happened, so we're kind of inferring that that's why. So anyway, we'll see. So moving on. To other news. I don't have a graphic for it. Earlier this week, Marvel Studios did announce that Black Widow was delayed till July 9th from May. Kind of saw that one coming a little bit, but what I also saw coming, they are going to do a simultaneous release in theaters and on Disney Plus through their Premier Access platform. I think it's what they needed to do. They pushed this movie back well over a year now.
I just hope it doesn't end up like Wonder Woman did. Like it's been pushed back so long and hyped up so much that now it just can't live up to the hype.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think Wonder Woman, it was just a bad movie. I think, honestly, from what I've gathered, which I haven't watched it.
I haven't watched it yet either.
I haven't either. And I really liked the first one.
Yeah. No, the first one was great.
Yeah.
I've heard that it was just so far off the mark. I bet you it probably would have flopped even if it had made its target date.
I mean, do you think that the success of Zack Snyder's Justice League being on HBO Max may have prompted Disney to go, maybe we need to release that on Disney Plus?
Possibly. I know probably Mulan probably scared them a little bit because it wasn't very well received when they did the Disney Plus, but it also didn't have the theatrical release tagged with it. Disney technically didn't do that again until Raya. Raya did relatively well. And I think that was the proof that they needed to say, okay, we can recoup our investment if we do it this way. I think they were looking at HBO Max and the simultaneous releases there. I don't think it was just Justice League by itself, but it was other releases that were kind of coming concurrently that probably convinced Marvel, yeah, I think this is our best option. I think waiting on it, because here's the thing is the movie releases are stagnating if they can't get Black Widow out. Right.
I agree. Yeah.
Eternal Shang-Chi can't come, Eternals can't come, Spider-Man can't come until Black Widow drops, right? And they're trying to position all these MCU shows, the television shows around it as well. So they're kind of
that just shows it's really cool when they make all this stuff interconnect. But also, if one thing is late, everything's late.
Absolutely.
It's a domino effect.
Yes, it's like what's going on in the news. The guy that got the boat stuck sideways in the Suez Canal. That's the Black Widow right now for them. And if they don't get it out of the way, nothing's going to go.
That's a proper analogy right there. That's a cluster in of itself. I looked at pictures. That boat is what they say. It's like 400 meters long.
Yeah.
Like that's like what, a third of a mile long. Mm-hmm. It can hold 20,000 shipping containers, and that thing is jackknifed sideways.
Yeah. And the Suez Canal, the boat's like 400
meters,
and the Suez Canal's like 395
something
wide,
like that.
like that.
Yeah. The math's not there. He probably should have been trying to do a Fast and Furious drift.
The power slide.
Yeah, power slide into the Suez Canal for flair. But anyway, so I think it's a good move. Of course, here in Texas, time will tell just kind of if theaters kind of bounce back. My gut is theaters are never going to come back the same way.
No, I think standalone theaters are probably going to not be able to make it, but these call them entertainment facilities where you've got like Synergy, where you have the theaters and the bowling alley and the arcade, all this stuff to do. I think those are going to be just fine.
I think so.
Yeah.
Because they're not totally dependent upon movies.
Right.
Absolutely.
It's a place to go to have fun no matter what you're doing.
An entertainment center, so to speak.
Yeah, and or places like an Alamo Drafthouse where it's kind of a curated experience. I think like the age of the megaplex in the traditional sense, I think it's over. I think it's going to force the movie studios to kind of reevaluate their investments.
Do you think some of maybe the older theaters that make it a novelty to play old movies on screen? I think those will be fine because there's still going to be movie lovers out there.
Yes,
that will go to the movies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But if all your new movies are being released on streaming, there's going to be those people that don't want to deal with other people and just stream it. So.
And I mean, you can see it like the movie houses. Mm-hmm. They're all opening up their own streaming services. Disney has theirs, Viacom has theirs, Time Warner has theirs. Like all the big movie media conglomerates are getting their new distribution. And so I think they're fine. I think the movie houses are fine. I think it's theaters that are going to take the hit.
I do think they're going to there's probably going to be a little bit of a learning curve as we move towards the more and more streaming, because if each movie house has their own streaming app, well, it's going to reach a point where people are done paying subscriptions.
Yeah.
Like they subscribe to enough places. So maybe we'll see some more stuff in like an Amazon kind of format where you don't pay for the app, but you pay for the movie.
Mm-hmm. Like pay-per-view almost.
Yeah.
Well, I'll counter this. I'll counter that thought with this thought. How much is a movie ticket?
$10.
$10?
Roughly, yeah.
And how much is a month of a streaming service? 15 at most. Netflix, I think Netflix is the most expensive right now, and it's at 15 for kind of their lower tier. You can get higher if you go 4K. Mm-hmm. If there's a movie coming out that month, I may subscribe to it for a month. Now, I may not stay subscribed.
See, that would be the workaround.
Absolutely.
Right? There's no way I would stay subscribed to 10 different places. You're spending more than you would on cable or satellite.
But really isn't TV and all of that, isn't it really all going to pay-per-view? I mean, you've seen it. You see it with the movies now. You see it with TV. I mean, there's Discovery Plus. There's all this stuff. Now, the other day, you see it with football. Yeah. So now you're going to. I think it's all going to pay-per-view.
I think if not necessarily if it doesn't just go to pay-per-view, it's going to go to more of like the a la carte, where essentially the streaming services technically are, right? You're paying a la carte. You're paying for each streaming service individually. It's not bundled into one big group. And in the early days of cord cutters, that was fine. Netflix was $7, Hulu was $7. Yeah, $14, and I get all this content. Yeah, I'm good for it. Well, they've both gone up, and now a lot of that content has left those platforms to go on to these other platforms. So now you're having to buy that and this and then that and the other. And by the time it's all said and done, you're paying exactly what you did before you cut the cord, right? They're finding a way to get their revenue. At one point, Netflix and all that was supplementary to your cable or your satellite or whatever. And now, like, you can't get away from it, right? If you want that content, you're going to pay for it. I don't see that changing. I see, it's going to happen more and more, right? I think all the big media all have their own all have their big streaming services. So Universal is Peacock, Time Warner's HBO Max, Disney is Disney Plus and Hulu, Viacom is Paramount Plus, was CBS All Access, now it's Paramount Plus. Like, they all have their own service now, and then Netflix is kind of its own. It was the first, but now it's kind of off on its own island, kind of a doing thing. But yeah, $15 for each. By the time it's all said and done, you're paying $75 to $100 for all this stuff, and now you're not getting live sports, right?
Or you just have your free Amazon account and buy the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, more and more, everything's going to this.
Yeah.
And it's nice to have the great big TV with all of that, but you could take that with you.
Yeah. Or in the, watch it in bed. Put your AirPods in, and your spouse is fast asleep next to you, and you're catching up on your log. It's going to be. I don't see it getting cheaper.
No.
And I don't think I remember, because I used to work for the local cable company here, and people always cried, why do you have these big lump packages of channels that I'm not going to watch this or this or this channel? Why am I paying for that? Well, because we bargained for them to package them together. And yeah, your cable television bill is expensive, and yeah, there's a lot of channels you don't watch, but when you start piecing it out, each individual part kind of grows into its own thing, and when you don't have that bargaining to push them together and bundle them together, you lose out on that. ESPN by itself sells cable subscriptions. That it just always has. It's always the most watched cable or satellite network, period. So when ESPN renegotiates with a cable company, they pretty much get to set their price, and cable companies just say, thank you, sir, may I have another?
Right.
Because it's ESPN. They can.
But you know who owns ESPN?
Disney.
Absolutely.
Cha-ching.
Absolutely.
And of course, what do you get when you have the Disney bundle? ESPN Plus, which is where ESPN's moving a lot of their content. Because I think the writing's on the wall. The cable and satellite, the big providers, are eventually going to go away. And I think we knew that a while ago. We just didn't realize how fast it was coming. I remember when I worked for the cable company that the focus was getting internet speeds faster, using more of the pipe for internet, because it was going to be one day the television channels will get dropped and we'll need more bandwidth. But that was 20 years down the road. Well, that advanced quickly to 5 or 10 years.
Don't you think that the pandemic has made all of this progress faster? Because it's hurt movie theaters.
Yeah.
And so they went to streaming to watch movies at home. It's hurt anything where crowds gather. It's hurt sports. It's hurt movies. It's hurt concerts.
Yeah.
It's hurt all of that. But it's opened the door for streaming services.
I think it is. It's made it more prevalent. Yeah, more people wanted something to do while they were locked down, so they were subscribing to this. I mean, what was it? Peacock and Paramount Plus both launched inside of the pandemic. CBS All Access was there, but they rebranded it and repackaged it. But Peacock launched, and those two launched, and HBO Max did too. So that was 3 of the big streaming services that all launched.
HBO's had a streaming service. It's kind of had an identity crisis
right
for a couple times now.
But the final kind of repackaging of the content, HBO and Paramount did the exact same thing. Viacom did the exact same thing. Yeah, I think it did accelerate it, and I don't see it going back. I really don't. I don't think.
No, I don't know.
I think it's uncorked at this point.
I don't know how. It's kind of like getting the genie back in the bottle. I don't know how you can.
No, I don't think so.
So speaking of streaming content, we got our first episode of Falcon Winter Soldier.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Did you watch it?
Absolutely. That was great.
Did you?
I thought it was great.
Yeah,
I enjoy Captain America. He's probably my number 2 on my list.
Yeah. So what I think I like, and we're not going to do a full episode recap, but it's basically it's a setup episode, right? You're seeing kind of where Sam and Bucky are kind of in the world post the unblip. so we're kind of getting a timeline that this is a few months after the unblip. So technically takes place after WandaVision, but not far after. And Sam's still working for the military, working for the Air Force, specifically. But then he's also kind of dealing with stuff at home. Bucky is in the middle of pardon.
I enjoy the conditions of his pardon. I think it's hilarious.
Oh, that's great. It's great. It's great.
What I think Disney is doing well, and I think this is what they've done well with the MCU overall, is that each film kind of has its own feel, right? Pretty much after Iron Man and Hulk, Captain America very much had, at first it was kind of the war film, but then it was kind of like the political thriller, kind of like Tom Clancy type movie, Patriot game, stuff like that. Doctor Strange kind of had its feel. They all had their own like kind of subgenre. They were, Ant-Man was the heist movie.
I think that's the beauty of both Marvel and Star Wars, is it's just a setting.
Yeah.
The type of movie, it depends on who's the main character,
right? So with that, they're kind of hitting all these subgenres of film inside of the Marvel umbrella. I think where the TV series are finding their stride, they're doing that. They're kind of finding some weird genres. WandaVision doesn't fit anything because it was a sitcom. It was so out of this world, right? Yeah, it was sitcoms, but it wasn't at the same time. Where I think they've landed so far, and I think this might be the theme with their television series, is that there's kind of an overarching message that each series is kind of telling. Excuse me. WandaVision, to me, I think that the overall theme, once you broke it down and kind of saw it from beginning to end, was grief and how do we deal with it, right? How do we react to it? How do we respond to it? Which, if you go back and watch previous episode, I think they missed the mark in the ending with that theme. But
I don't think they did. I think it came to the point that you can't ever just get rid of it. It's always going to be there.
Yes,
you just have to learn how to deal with it.
When you go through the stages of grief, acceptance is part of it. I don't think that has happened with Wanda, because there's the hope that they can all just come back, right? That's not acceptance.
But that's also a comic book too. You always have to reset the status quo.
Death doesn't happen. But what I'm saying is that was kind of the prevailing theme in WandaVision, was grief. I'm thinking, from what I gather from the first episode, where they're focusing, and Captain America has always kind of been this. It's for the people who serve, life after serving, right? So Captain America's kind of overall theme was, being a man out of time, right? Readjusting. The world moved on and you didn't, right? That was Captain America's big hook. Sam, to a lesser extent, has that, but he's taking the angle of a veteran who's coming back home and trying to come home again, right? And trying to be, reconnect with family, reconnect with, that stuff. And the difficulties that a veteran may have in doing
that. They kind of address that. He's wanting to come save the family.
Yeah.
But they don't really want the help now.
He's used to be the guy doing the saving. And he may not can with his family.
Exactly. And then of course Bucky, his is the guilt, right? That I have done I've done these missions and I did the mission because that's what I was supposed to do, but I still feel guilt because of the things I did, right? So these are all things that veterans in real life deal with, right? This is kind of the umbrella. So I like that they're really, it's a comic book movie or a comic book series, right? But it can be so much more. It can tell a veteran's story, right? And it's telling it through, well, in this series, these two guys, but it's done it with Captain as well. That they're all soldiers, and they're dealing with the non-soldier life or the non-hero life.
Well, and that's one thing that Marvel Studios has done such a good job of, is these guys aren't just superheroes.
Right.
They make them human.
I was going to say that what they've done in this, to me, is they've humanized these guys. They've shown that he does have a family. Yeah, he does feel bad for killing all these people, and he wants to make amends.
Well, and like one thing I never thought about until this episode was, how do these guys make a living?
Yeah.
Tony Stark just pays it all.
Right.
Yeah.
they go to the bank trying to get a
Get
loan.
loan,
It's
and it's like,
oh, you're an Avenger. You saved the world, but you don't have
have
work
no,
history.
You have no income.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and it's fascinating because you don't think about that. It's fascinating. And I'm going to say this. To me, Sam Wilson in the comics was one of the most interesting characters ever.
Yeah.
And the movies and this series has made him very interesting.
Oh yeah, he was very much a sidekick, right? He was Captain America and the Falcon. That was the comic.
He was Robin is
Yeah.
basically what he was.
Really?
He was uninteresting to me, but this series and these movies have made him very interesting.
Yeah.
And I think the Winter Soldier is one of the most interesting characters Marvel's done in a long time.
Yeah.
I think he's a great character.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think, like I said, I think taking their stories and putting that human spin on it, right? What can we tap into that a normal average person can relate to? Well, veterans can relate to them, right? Mm-hmm. They can relate to them on these levels. These are the struggles of coming home and not being a soldier or being not deployed or what have you. I think it's neat. I think it's neat to see where they're going with just the human themes, not just the overarching story, right? There's still that. There's still the MCU implications and how it affects the entire thing. So we see going into the episode, one of Sam's Air Force kind of liaisons has been investigating this splinter group of people who don't think the world was better off blipped, right? Think the world was better off with half of everybody gone, and also that we shouldn't have we should just have one unified government or what have you. And so he's investigating kind of this splinter group, and we see somebody who has extra human abilities, right? Super strength, jumps out of a window, lands it, kicks a guy into a wall. So now we're seeing other supers out there. And then of course at the end of the episode, we see that the US government has christened a new Captain America, which for those that are familiar with the comics, this is laying into the U.S. agent story arc, and I can't remember his name to save my life because
it's John.
John something. I can't remember.
Yeah, it's John. All I can think of is it's Kurt Russell's boys. It's doing
yes,
that.
yeah, that's
all
Kurt
I can
Russell's
think
son.
of, yeah.
He looks kind of derpy in the mask.
Yeah.
He just looks like you see pictures of him without it, and he looks like a normal dude. But like for whatever reason, the lines on the mask make
it makes him look really square.
I saw him made. It was the old man from Up.
I saw that one. Yeah.
And I swear they looked identical. Just the wideness of the face or whatever. It was just freaking hilarious.
There was something that Bucky said in that in last night, and it stuck in my mind. When he had the flashback.
Okay.
And he was
to the hotel scene.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. When he killed that guy.
Yeah.
He said, "Hail Hydra."
Yeah.
Was he working for them, or was he aggravating the guy that he killed by saying, kind of like stick it in your ear?
I think a lot of it just depends on, because I think it implied in Captain America: The Winter Soldier that he kind of got passed around. I think Hydra ended up with him, but
Because he originally was working for the Soviets, wasn't he?
yeah,
Yes. That was the red star on
Right.
his
why he had the red star, why he was called the Winter Soldier. So it implies that he was kind of property that was kind of passed around or stolen or what have you. That's why, people, whoever had the book that could trigger him kind of controlled who the Winter Soldier was. So,
it also kind of alludes that he's not the only Winter Soldier.
right.
Yeah. Well, in the was it the Winter Soldier?
Civil War.
Civil War, where they had, the chamber with
I'll line up.
15 or 20 or
So
whatever.
there's a couple of theories that, this kind of superpowered guy that you see, there's a couple of theories on who or what that could be. Tanner and I were talking after we watched it on Friday that, maybe Zemo did not eliminate all of them, right? That he didn't actually, unfreeze all of them and kill them. That some of them were still safe and he was using them because we know Zemo's coming, right? They cast Daniel Bruhl to come back as Zemo. That he's using them, and if you watch the end credits. The little titles at the end, very important that all of a sudden there's a name that pops up called Power Broker. And if you go back to the comics, Power Broker is it's not a person, it's actually an organization that gave US Agent his abilities.
Okay.
And so part of me wonders if that's some kind of puppet organization that Zemo's using to power up people to basically tarnish Super's kind of viewability, right? Because it's always been since Civil War that Zemo's big shtick is not having superheroes at all, right? That they're overstepping or what have you. That it almost kind of like mirrors the Incredibles, when everybody's super, nobody is kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder if they're taking that angle or if they're going to kind of put their own spin on, like the MCU's done. The MCU takes all these nuggets from the comic world and kind of tweaks them a little bit or mashes them together to where even people that have read the comics, we know who US Agent is and where he got his powers and this and that and the other. But MCU kind of just says, yeah, but we're going to
I do think it's interesting if you pay attention to what's going on in Marvel's miniseries, not the continuing books, but the miniseries. The villains often match what's going on in the MCU.
Yeah.
So in Nonstop Spider-Man, guess Zemo is the villain.
Yeah.
Now, there's a lot of theories that Kang is going to be the next big bad guy.
Yeah.
Well, he showed up in Avengers Mech Strike, which is it's just going to be a 5-part miniseries.
Yeah.
So, but you don't always see that in the ongoing series. Just the little side shots.
Marvel's been great about using the comics to kind of backdoor promote.
Well, I was going to say to keep the interest.
Oh,
Rolling.
yeah.
So who is the guy that kicked the soldier around? Do you have a theory?
I have a theory he is somebody that the Power Broker organization or Zemo has imbued somehow. They've kind of tapped into a super soldier serum, and I think it's more connected to the U.S. Agent.
Do you? I think it is the U.S. Agent.
You think they're one and the same?
I think so.
Possibly. Yeah.
I think so. And I think they probably, because it's kind of odd, and I hate to ruin this for people that haven't watched it yet, but don't you? I kind of get the impression, the slimy senator that told Sam you're doing the right thing, when he turned in the shield, and then all of a sudden he's the guy that introduces U.S. Agent.
Yeah.
I think he's part of that splinter group. And
we already know that one senator is directly working for Hydra because that's the chick that Bucky,
the one that he went and
kind of scared, intimidated.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of think maybe he's part of that, and that's his guy. I mean, I don't know how to say.
It wouldn't. So, like I said, my kind of gut right now with the series is Zemo is kind of puppet mastering these pawns, right? That they're either the same person or they're two of the same people, and it's all kind of a ruse to basically pull superheroes out of favorable view of the public, right? To turn people against superheroes, right? That was, the his whole plan in Civil War was to basically, discredit and make superheroes go away because they do nothing but, harm the world. So I'll be curious to see where they go. But like I said, I think it's going to be good. We're one episode in, but it started pretty strong. I mean, it was not like WandaVision where it was kind of slow burning in the beginning, and we're like, what the crap is going on?
Well, but going back to what you were saying about each kind of Marvel movie has its own feel. We're in an actual action movie, whereas WandaVision, they were getting into the mystic stuff, and even Doctor Strange, I think, is super slow, just because of all the mystic. Everything's got to be a mystery kind of stuff.
If you're not a big Doctor Strange fan, I don't think that movie really strikes a chord with you.
It was great in 3D. Yeah, as long as you don't get motion sick. You're good to go.
Yeah, but I to kind of talk about what you were talking about, I think that the series, it has a Winter Soldier feel to it. Like it did in the movie. Little intrigue, little stuff going on behind. Surprises.
Yeah, I think that's where they really found that kind of that niche pretty much starting with Captain America Winter Soldier was to kind of take that angle, right? And I think, of course, that was very much the Russos. That's why that feel carried over into Civil War. And even though the Russos aren't over this series, they kind of seeded a lot of that. So it was kind of take the ball and run with it at this point. I'm excited about it. So if I'm kind of picking those major themes, grief and reacclimation, and stuff like that, kind of wondering where Loki falls in that, right? So that's our next MCU series after Captain America Winter Soldier, Falcon and Winter Soldier.
It's gonna be shenanigans. That's gonna be the theme of
Shenanigans. Well, I mean, of course, we know Loki is bringing in what they call the Time Variance Authority, the TVA, which is kind of a response to the fact that pretty much the Avengers jacked with a bunch of different timelines. Even though they apparently fixed them somehow, they're also broken at the same time, right? Because Loki's just out there, bouncing around from different universes.
Well, that's one thing I never understood about how they fix stuff. So Black Widow, it takes place before.
Yes.
Right.
I think it takes place before.
I think it takes place before Avengers, doesn't it?
I think honestly, I think it's before Infinity War for sure. Because she was redheaded, and she stopped being blonde headed before the blonde was growing out when she died. So this would have been prior to all that.
Okay.
So
because if they really put those stones back when they got them, she should be alive again. She died to get the one stone. So if she never got it, then
but I thought they had that argument, and they said she's not coming back. I thought Smart Hulk cleared. Is that not right?
I don't know.
I mean, some of that stuff was,
in my head, it makes sense. If they put the stones back at the exact moment they were taken, she should be alive.
So I think
I'm with you. But
I think the fact that the Mind Stone kind of operates differently than the rest of them, the way to acquire it is
well, that was the Soul Stone.
Sorry, the Soul Stone. Sorry. Since the Soul Stone kind of operated differently than the rest, the price may always be paid regardless. Regardless of there's no returns, right? It just depends on,
because it would have been returned before she died.
Right, but
or was it returned at the exact moment she died?
It doesn't say,
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, and
Maybe she's just chilling with Red Skull. They're hanging out.
Right. On Boromir, getting a tan on Boromir.
I don't know. It kind of makes my eyes cross thinking about it, and they don't explicitly go into it, about putting them back where.
Hey, I've got an idea. Why don't you use your considerable influence and get the Russos on here, and we'll get them to explain.
I'll send them an email after the show, and we'll see how well that goes. Well, Dusty, so we bring you on the show, and definitely thank you for coming and talking to us about all this other stuff. But you definitely have a comic passion, and you're wearing it on your chest, both metaphorically and literally. So you've been a Batman fan since you're 10. What is it about the Caped Crusader?
I was always a scary movie guy. I like vampire movies and scary movies.
Okay.
It's got to have something to do with the cape, the ears.
Okay.
The vibe that Batman has, the dark feel to it. I like the dark Batman. I like the mean Batman. I like Frank Miller's Batman.
Okay, Dark Knight Returns.
Absolutely. And I had quit for a while. I had gotten out.
Yeah.
And I kept reading this stuff about the Dark Knight Returns. I said, okay.
Because that was what, 80, 87?
80
or no good internet,
something like that. And so I went and picked up The Dark Knight Returns, and I thought, man, if this is how it is, I'm missing out. And I got back in, and I haven't got back out since.
Let's see here, Dark Knight.
But I've got, I couldn't tell you how many Batman. I couldn't tell you, thousands.
It published between February to June of 1986.
All in the same year. So they actually put out a premium book all in the same year.
Yeah.
So it can be done.
Yes. Yeah. So
Wow.
So what did that be?
Imagine that.
That'd be 4. Was it 4 different issues, and then they compiled it together?
Yeah.
Yep, 4 different
I
issues. Yeah.
have not been much of a Batman reader, but him in every other type of media probably hits my favorite. Like
Mm-hmm.
the Arkham games, those set the standard for superhero games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All the movies, they are
Not all the movies.
all the movies.
Well,
They set the
time out.
standard for something.
Time out.
Bat
Well, I was going to say the George Clooney. Come on.
Yeah.
That set the standard for the worst superhero movie ever.
But like the cartoons, a lot of the stuff defined what came after.
Oh, the Batman the Animated Series, best superhero cartoon ever made. Well, I'm listening.
X-Men.
No, no,
Sorry.
no. Batman the Animated was the
Great series. Don't get me
absolutely.
wrong. I
Yeah.
loved it all.
Yeah, but you're probably more of an X-Men
I am
fan.
more of an
okay,
X-Men
well
fan.
that explains
That is
it.
unabashed.
Okay,
right
so while we're sitting here talking about this, first impressions of the Robert Pattinson Batman.
I'm curious to see what kind of angle they take on it. I was skeptical about Christopher Nolan taking it in Batman Begins. I'm like, why are they rebooting it? And and of course it ended up being a more grounded Batman story, right? It lost a lot of the fantastical, all the villains and everything had a very realistic, that's a relative term to stuff. It kind of looks that's where the Batman is kind of headed. It's hard to tell in just screenshots and
Absolutely.
and stuff like that.
What I want to see is the detective Batman.
Yes,
Where he's actually investigating.
Yes.
yes.
So
get away from
almost
the-
like a detective noir type film.
Yeah.
I'd be down for that.
Well, and they've already kind of established at DC that multiple people can exist within the same universe playing the same character. We know that the Leto Joker and the Joker they both exist within this DC multiverse.
Right.
So we might still have Batfleck as the violent kind of tough guy Batman.
The best Batman.
And then we might get Pattinson as a more of a detective kind of feel.
I kind of think Batfleck is end of career Batman, and Pattinson
almost
is
Dark
just
Knight
the
Return,
beginning.
almost Dark Knight Return style.
Almost, yes, almost. And I think it's a shame if they don't make that into a movie and they don't cast Ben Affleck as that character.
Yeah. I think he's got the physique for it, or he can have the physique
Absolutely.
for it.
Absolutely.
Hollywood actors, they can have whatever physique they want because they can pay trainers to get it.
Yeah, yeah. They can eat food we can't afford.
Exactly. I think that actually is a good angle. I think if you're gonna go for a really unique take, right? Burton had his kind of take on it, which I loved 89 Batman and Batman Returns. I love the feel. Of course, it set the tone for the animated series. The animated series was very much in the Burton kind of style, right?
Yeah.
But they borrowed from like the old Superman cartoons a little bit too.
Absolutely.
To get that style. And then Schumacher definitely had his style, which was
Awful.
neon, whatever.
Awful.
Part of me, like, I still have a place in my heart for Batman Forever. Parts of it were good, not all of it. I actually liked Val Kilmer, but anyway, Nolan took the ball and ran with it, and very much put his spin on it. And of course, I think they're probably some of the more successful.
I think they were too successful. And I think they are the reason why a lot of DC movies since have been so bad, because they want to recreate that feel with these other heroes, but these other heroes are not Batman.
You can't.
I
Well, you
agree.
can't have that grounded feel with Superman. He's Superman. You can't have it with, an Amazon or an Atlantean or some cosmic,
No,
space
because
policeman.
they're gods, and Batman's
Yeah.
just a guy that could walk down the street.
Yeah,
They want so bad to have another Dark Knight success that they're ruining their other movies.
But when Nolan took it over, it was a much needed reboot.
Oh,
they
yeah.
needed to reboot it. They needed to say, forget that other stuff. This is what we need to do.
So a couple questions, Dusty. I'm gonna throw this at you.
Okay.
Who spent their money better, Bruce Wayne or Tony Stark?
Bruce Wayne.
I'd rather have an armored suit.
No way. No way. No way.
I think, so often we get the Iron Man versus Batman debate.
I've had this with Darren. Believe it
So-
or not, I've had this with Darren.
Well, but I'll dovetail you because there's a counter argument. There's actually a better pairing.
But Tony Stark,
that's-
his suit was invented out of necessity.
Yes.
You know, he had to have it to keep the heart going.
Yeah.
Bruce Wayne don't need it.
So I was about to go on your kind of divergent. I don't think you should compare the two. They're two different characters. Batman is a detective. Iron Man is a beat 'em up superhero.
Right.
Good point. Good point.
They shouldn't even be compared.
Right.
They're both the only thing they have in common is being a
Is
billionaire.
money, right? So maybe a better comparison then is Batman and Mark Spector, Moon Knight.
Oh, Batman.
Yeah, but
He's
I
more
think-
interesting.
I
He's
think-
more interesting to me.
I don't know. Mark Spector's schizophrenic.
I know, but nobody's ever
and
taken
he has
the.
and he has all like the Egyptian mysticism, which of course we're getting a Moon Knight series eventually, and so I wonder, you know,
See, but that's almost a better comparison with Dr. Fate.
I was going to say he's like Dr. Fate, just a different costume.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know that there is a perfect comparison for
perfect
Batman.
analog to Batman.
Let me ask you this: is Batman a superhero? Yes or no? I have this argument all the time.
Yeah, I totally see what you're saying. I mean, is Hawkeye a superhero? Is Black Widow a superhero? Kind of
Absolutely.
a thing. They're not super.
So I actually think it depends on the setting. Is he alone in Gotham or is he in the Justice League? If he's in the Justice League, he's a superhero because he's the super tactician.
Okay.
If he's in Gotham, he's just the vigilante. There's
Okay.
nothing super about Batman in Gotham.
So,
But when you take him into the Justice League setting, he's super in that setting, and the fact that he's the brains of the organization.
so
Okay.
him being an exceptional detective doesn't count as a power, I guess you would say.
I would say not in the standalone. If you're comparing him to just the characters in Batman, just the Gotham characters, I would not say he is super.
Yeah.
So
I think
so
it's-
you're saying
it's
his
Team
villain,
Batman that is
his
super.
villains aren't superhero worthy.
Now that in itself is depends on the
I-
villain, because a lot
yeah.
of the villains have super strength.
True.
Well, case in point, Lex Luthor and the Joker. Neither of them are superhuman,
No.
but Lex Luthor is a super villain because he has technology, kind of the Iron Man thing. The Joker's just flat out crazy. Maybe that's a superhuman ability in of itself. I think he's a superhero in that he is not an everyday hero. He's not like a first responder or anything like that. So he is a hero that is above a class of what you would consider a traditional hero, right? You know, a soldier or what have you. Relative to other superheroes, yeah, maybe not, but I think there's classes. I would still say Black Widow and Hawkeye are very much superheroes because they do heroic things that are outside of the ordinary heroism, right? So, yes, he's a superhero.
I think he's Batman.
Yeah.
He's Batman.
Yeah. So, where do you see Batman right now? As far as the comics go, films aside, where do you see Batman? What do you think DC needs to lean into for kind of the future longevity of the comic? If they do continue to publish comics, what does DC need to lean into?
Right now, I think he carries DC.
Yeah.
I really do. I think
He's carried them for a long time.
I do too, and I think I know what they're doing with this future state stuff. I think they're feeling it out to see if there's any interest in going that direction.
Yeah.
If they decide not to go, they've got to go back to him being, the deal when Jim Lee and the writer escapes me, the Hush storyline from around 608 to 620.
Jeff Johns?
Was it Johns or Loeb or one of those guys? Anyway, the Hush storyline, where he was a detective, but in today's world, I really think they need to get back to that and kind of get away from the bigger things that they're doing. You know what I mean?
That was Jeff Loeb.
Okay, I think they need to get back to more stories like that instead of big. You know what I mean?
I think all publishers could get away from the big crossovers for a little bit.
It's enough. It's enough.
But yeah, I mean, you know he's carried DC because his book's $4.99 and all the others are $2.99.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know.
Well, and so, it's kind of one of those things. It's like, so Batman inside the DC universe can almost be an island by itself, kind of like the X-Men in the Marvel universe can almost be an island in of themselves, and they don't need each other like they might have used to at a certain point, right? That was, because for the longest time there was no DC universe, right? That was actually an aftermath of, Stan Lee connecting all the Marvel characters' story arcs, and Marvel was the first one that had that comic universe, right, where all the different characters that they were creating were interconnected in some way. DC didn't do that until after the 60s, right? Because when was Justice League #1? When was the first Justice League comic?
It was Brave and the Bold 28. It was probably 60. It had to be after the Fantastic Four. So it was probably 62, 63?
60. March of 1960.
Okay.
So that would have predated...
Okay. The Fantastic Four a little bit, right?
Yeah, that Fantastic Four was 62, so that actually would have predated them.
Had it backwards. Okay.
But, the DC had what, a 40-year run-up or 30-year run-up to that, that for the longest time, Batman and Superman were two totally separate, characters. And so Batman was always just his own thing.
Well,
They
weren't
weren't even the same publishers when they started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they had World's Finest. It was Batman, Superman for hundreds of issues.
Okay.
You got to see a Batman, Superman team up in World's Finest since the 40s.
Okay.
They were in the 40s, but it was more of a buddy type.
Yeah.
Yeah,
which is just always just hilarious that this space alien that's impenetrable and this billionaire, it's like just a weird mashup.
Now that was the old ones where you would see Robin being abducted by the checkerboard alien, and Batman figured out that to defeat him he had to hit him with ice cream or something like that. Those were grand stories.
That's right up there with shark repellent.
Absolutely.
So, and I'll be honest, I'm not a big DC guy, but it's hard not to be a comic fan and not like Batman in some way, form, or fashion, right? And I think for me, the thing Batman has better than anybody is his rogues gallery. His villains, hands down, are some of the most interesting and varied villains. Joker's not my favorite villain. I think as far as supervillains go, Magneto is like just right up here as the upper echelon.
So go in it with this idea of the villains. There's a book out there called Batman and Psychology. It's by Travis Langley. So it's a really good read. It's awesome. He treats all these characters like they're his patients. You kind of get to read his patient evaluation of them. But he goes into this theory of how all of Batman's not all of them, but the big villains are just if Batman's personality were swayed in one direction just a little bit further.
Well, that almost leans into the Killing Joke, the story behind it. You're everybody's one bad day away from being a horrible person.
Right.
Yeah. No, and I get that.
He's one missed appointment away from being Calendar Man.
I mean,
Exactly.
like that was always the reason I was never a Superman fan is there was no, and I think this is one of the reasons that Marvel just really rocketed to success in the 60s was for the first time those superheroes were human. They had they were deeper than just the act of being a hero, right? For the first time. Peter Parker was a teenager that had teenager problems. The Fantastic Four was a mildly dysfunctional family.
Sure.
And the X-Men had they had basically civil rights was kind of their thing. For the first, Superman was just this alien guy who was, you don't understand why he ever had problems with anybody because he's kind of all powerful and stuff like that. He wasn't super conflicted. I mean, I guess probably the only like non-hero turmoil he ever had was his relationship with Lois Lane. I guess nothing relatable. And for the longest time, Batman was he was just this billionaire detective. It wasn't until like they really started developing his a lot of his villains and stuff that's when they really started to flesh out the character and make Bruce Wayne a more conflicted character. And like I said, I think his villains gallery, his Rose Gallery, is what did that.
But that was when Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams started their run on Batman. Was when he got very interesting, and they made him more of a detective. Brought him back darker, got away from the silly stuff, And like you said, they made the villains. They brought the Joker back.
Yeah.
The cover with the Joker on the playing card. That was Neil Adams and Denny O'Neil.
Yeah.
And that was his first appearance in forever in Batman.
Right. Yeah.
And when they brought him back, it's like all of his stuff just took off. All the Joker. All of a sudden, he got very popular.
Yeah, because you'd see him in the Batman television series, but he wasn't. The Cesar Romero Joker wasn't.
You'd see the mustache
Oh my
under the
gosh.
white makeup.
Yeah, because he wouldn't shave his mustache.
Yeah. Cesar Romero.
But he wasn't he was a goofy character, but he wasn't the Joker that we know, right?
No. The homicidal maniac.
I think the Batman television series, there were way better villains than the Joker.
Oh, please. Absolutely. Absolutely.
But yeah, and honestly, because I don't know really. I always knew, growing up, of Batman. I don't remember the first time I was like, oh, who is this? That's Batman. It's kind of like Star Wars for me. I just grew up around it because I had an older brother that was always around it. And I had a Super Friends cartoon sleeping bag. That's how I knew who all the DC characters were. But I didn't really know who the Joker was until the '89 movie. And of course, Jack Nicholson, I still think he's one of the best Jokers.
Oh, that's not even discussed.
Heath Ledger was great, but I think just as far as a quintessential Joker, I think Nicholson.
Are we talking live action only, or
are you?
Oh, you're going
Mark
Hamill. Yeah, his voice was great. His voice was great.
Still is. He can still do it too.
Not even the cartoon. Mark Hamill voices the Joker in the Arkham games, and I think I think in the game that is the best.
Well,
Joker.
the one he did in Origins, when he didn't do it, that game just sucked because he wasn't in it.
Right.
Like I said, I do love Batman. I don't read Batman. I don't read a lot that's not X-Men right now, just because there's so many X-Men titles and Star Wars titles. It's just hard to keep up with everything else. But like I said, I think even if you're not a DC fan, you can be a Batman fan. Just kind of like if you're not a Marvel fan, you can be an X-Men fan. They're so independent of each other, that they can go together, but then they can also be apart. So, yeah.
I'll show you something
I would almost
real quick. See that?
Your bat charm?
That came out in '89 when the movie came out.
Okay.
And I've had it on ever since. I also had a ring made with that on it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Back then in '89, I could wear it on just about any finger. Now it has to be a pinky ring.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I feel you. That's why I'm on a silicone ring now. I understand. It'll grow with me.
Yeah.
So, well, guys, thanks so much for joining us. Tanner, what do we have coming up on the YouTube channel this week?
So, if you're watching this as it comes out, this Friday and Saturday, what is today? So 26th and 27th of March, we're doing a live signature event with David Nakayama. That's going to be live on our Facebook, live on our YouTube, live on our Twitch.
Yep.
I'm going to have more review videos coming. I just made it through the previews book for June, so I'll be having a June previews coming up. Brandon and I are going to be spending some time brainstorming to get our gaming channel kind of taken off the ground. And, of course, every week we have our final order cutoff countdown.
By the way, I want to say David Nakayama's covers are unbelievable.
Aren't they awesome? Oh, yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, those color bleed covers, I think, are some of my most favorite covers that we've done so far. I think
we have a bunch more of them coming,
like I said,
too.
once you have like a ton of them, if you can get just all the Virgin covers, this is what I've said, and just kind of all mount them together into one art piece, I think I think it'd be great.
I had to buy the one with Mary Jane on the front. That he recently, that's a killer.
Gwenom Carnage 2.
Two. Yes, it's a killer.
Yeah. No, he's great. So we've got that signing coming. So, Dusty, thank you so much for joining us and
Absolutely.
talking
It was a lot of
Batman
fun.
with us. So we will definitely have you back at some point in the future, and we'll talk about more geeky stuff. In the meantime, guys, you can catch us. You can catch us on Facebook. We're on YouTube, of course. We're on Twitch,
Instagram, Twitter,
all the things. Search.
This is Chris's job.
Yeah, normally Chris has all the links memorized, but definitely catch us where you can. We've got a lot of interesting content coming up. Thanks again for joining us, and have a great week.